In this lesson, we'll learn how to solve algebraic equations using the algebra steps and using justifications we're familiar with, such as add, subtract, multiply, divide, substitute in a different value, distribution, distributing inside the parentheses, a number or a variable, reflexive, symmetric, and transitive property. Because reflexive, symmetric, and transitive are used throughout what we learn in geometry throughout the year, we have an example for each style of algebra, segments, and angles. Our first problem example is solving an algebra equation, and we're using the equation, and then we'll look at the steps for solving. So first we have to rewrite the equation, which our reason is given. We then are going to add 4x to each side, which is the addition property. Combine like terms, which is simplifying. Subtract 2 from each side, which is subtraction property. Combine the constant terms, simplify it. Divide by 7 on each side, so division. Our solution is x equals 3. What will you have to put in? The equations are your statements. The reasons are your properties. The only thing that's given is what's given in the original problem, and we never write prove, remember, for our last statement. We write what x is equal to or what the variable equals. Here's another example. We start with the equation that's given. We're going to multiply or distribute inside the parentheses, so that's distributive property. We're then going to add 40 to both sides, that's addition, and divide each side by negative 35, that's division. So our solution is w equals 2. Our next problem is a story problem. You get a raise at your part-time job. To write your raise as a percent, use the formula P times R plus 1 equals N, where P is your previous wage, R is the percent increase as a decimal, and N is your new wage. Solve the formula for R. What is your raise written as a percent when your hourly wage increases from $7.25 to $7.54? Here's our solution. We're going to solve for R in the formula. So our equation is given. We're going to distribute the P inside of the parentheses, subtract P from both sides, so that's subtraction, divide each side by P, and then we're going to use our numbers they gave us for N and P to evaluate R. Our solution is 0.04. In our next example, you reflect the beam of a spotlight off a mirror lying flat on a stage as shown. Determine whether the angles are equal. So we have measure of 1 equals 3. That's given. We know that adding the measures of adjacent angles, that's angle addition postulate, that the measure of DBA equals 3 plus 2. So we can substitute in angle 1 for 3. So DBA is 1 plus 2. And so if we add the measures by angle addition, 1 plus 2 equals EBC. Therefore, the two angles by transitive property are equal. So a little different style of question with angles, but using the same algebra properties for solving. Next, we'll look at just naming some properties in the problem. So our first one, if measure of 6 equals 7, then 7 equals 6. That's the symmetric property. 34 is equal to 34 is reflexive. Then we have if angle 1 equals 2 and 2 equals 5, 1 equals 5, that's transitive property. And the next one, we have another example. A park, a store, a shoe store, and pizza store, movie theater are all located in order on a city street. The distance between the park and the shoe store is the same as between the pizza shop and the movie theater. Show the distance between the park and pizza shop is the same as between the shoe store and the movie theater. First, we have to understand the problem. Next, we're going to make a plan and draw a picture. Then we're going to modify the diagram by letting the points represent the park. And then we're going to use segment addition to show how to solve the problem. So we're going to use segment addition. And then we make sure that the problem makes sense. So here's what we're saying. The distance from P to S is equal to Z to M. We also know that P to Z is P to S plus the distance from S to Z. From S to M is the distance from S to Z plus Z to M. We also know that we can add the same things to both sides of the equation, and then final step is to substitute in to replace the quantities. Here we'll do more practice naming the properties. So the first one, if JK equals KL and KL equals 16, then JK equals 16, that's transitive property. On the second one, we're just switching the two around, that's symmetric. And the third one, reflexive, saying it equals itself. Here's another example, stating with the same exact thing as before, but replacing it with a different showing. pH equals HM, so a little different problem. So again, here it shows us the different properties that we can use from algebra to help us to solve the problem. And finally, stating the property again for each one. So if we add the same thing to both sides, that's addition. It doesn't matter if it's a segment, an angle, or a measurement. On the second one, again, we have the and to look for. 2 equals 4 and 4 equals 6, then 2 equals 6, that's transitive property. And this next one, you're just switching them around. So again, it's symmetric property.